Hey guys, what's up? It is no surprise that first party data is going to be one and only valid source of data collection going forward, because third party cookies eventually are going to be sunset. It is no big, there are no surprises there. In such a world, in such an environment, how does a marketer or a business try its best to get the most out of the first party data, and what are the ways that you can collect this data becomes the burning question. There are no secrets. There is nothing that we have not done before. There is nothing that we have not tried before. But the only difference that this session is going to make you understand is that we have done all these things individually in silos in the past. But when you put a combination of these things together, it becomes a very strong tool to collect your first party data. What I mean by that is forms are nothing new to us. We have tried forms. Chatbots are nothing new to us. We have done those. We have done that. We have seen companies do chatbots. We have seen companies try and send you personalized messages. We have seen companies ask you to do surveys. We have seen companies to ask to send recorded. We have seen companies ask to send. We've also seen companies do user generated content. But when you put all these things together and weave a strategy around it, and I think probably this is the time when we are talking about strategy around first party data. All these while it has been about ideas to collect first party data, but I think we should shift the discussion from ideas to generate first party data to a strategy around first party data where you can use a combination of 14 of the things that I would be discussing now to come up with a very, very, very strong ecosystem so that you can never run short of personalization, you can never run short of segmentation, you can never basically run short of ways to collect your first party data. So on that note, let's get started. The first idea that I would be talking about is using chatbots. We have chatbots, we know how chatbots work, and we also know using platforms like ManyChat, we also know that using platforms like ManyChat, it is not a big deal if we really have to go ahead and start using chatbots. But how sensible are those chatbots? What is the problem that they're trying to solve is a big question. You can't just have a chatbot for the sake of having it. You need to have a purpose behind the chatbot. What is the big problem that the chatbot is going to solve? Number one, that's the first question. The second question is your chatbot should be in such a way that it complements the rest of the marketing activities that you're doing. For example, you sent out a personalized email, people click on a link in that email and come to your website. Your chatbot should speak to them accordingly. You can't talk to them like a first-time visitor because that would send away people because they don't find it relevant at all. So using chatbots, how you use them, in what context you're using them, and in what combination of the other aspects are you using this chatbot makes a big difference. The second thing is using contests or quizzes. There is nothing more exciting and nothing tickles a user more than trying to try out a survey. For example, it could be like identify your BMI index, body mass index is one of the biggest things. Take this test and find out. Answer these questions for you to understand your financial score, your credit score. Answer these questions to understand what is the score of your website. Now, these are some of the intriguing questions that will instantaneously make people to take that test, to take that quiz or whatever it is, and they will, and it gives them a scope to engage with them, fetching you first party data in return. Personalization is here to stay. It is not going away anywhere. Every time a user visits your website, if he has taken a step ahead, it is your responsibility to make sure that you identify him, you greet him when he visits next time, save his personalized settings, recommend things more to him, recommend things to him based upon what he has already searched for. Personalization is here to stay. Similarly, when we're talking about personalization, we should go a step ahead and talk about hyper-personalization, because one size definitely doesn't fit all. The past few years in marketing has definitely showed us that you need to address the market at scale while talking to individual people in your segment. So hyper-personalization is a very important idea if you want to generate your first-party data. Then you have progressive profiling. Consumers' expectations are constantly growing, and it is inevitable that you be patient with them, and you can't push them to ask 100 questions at once. So you need to identify things and you need to identify ways you can keep fetching bits and pieces of information as they progress ahead, as they navigate through your funnel. So progressive profiling is a technique where you keep asking simple one or two questions each time they interact with your website. Ultimately, you will arrive at a persona that you can refine later. This is very. Then you have event-based tracking. With the recent launch of GA4, or with Google implementing Google Analytics 4 by July 2023, everything is going to be shifting towards event-based tracking. Now, most of us, let's face it, most of us have analytics accounts, but we hardly look into it. Or we look at the data, we look at the fanciful dashboards, we look at one or two data points, but we don't try to make sense of the whole data. So you need to have. So with GA4, you should be focusing more on event-based activities that will give you much more insights than just looking at mere numbers in silos. That brings us to the next question, which is adapt a data-based marketing approach, have a strategy around data, make sense of the data. Then you have the next thing that you need to do. The next thing that we would be talking about is using unified data. Today, a user navigates through your website from a device, from a laptop to a mobile device through an app. So you need to find out a way, you need to figure out a way to identify the user and across all the platforms in a unified manner. You don't have to do anything extra. It's already there. It's all there. Analytics gives you the data. There are other tools which will help you get a unified view of the user, of the visitor, right? So you need to get a unified view of your potential customer. User-generated content, I cannot stress enough on the importance of this, because user-generated content on either your social media profiles, on your blogs, on your YouTube channels, gives a straight validation, is a straightforward validation from a user, from your customer, that they vouch for that service. So please don't shy away from asking users to post user-generated content. It is impossible to work if you simply call the users, email them and ask them to post content and tag you in it. It will not work out. Instead, have a strategy around that. Have a contest in place. Let's say if McDonald's says anybody who has a funny picture, the funniest of the pictures. For example, let me give you an example. If McDonald's could do a post which says, show us you like McDonald's show us you like McDonald's without saying it, and people will come up with creative ways to actually post a lot of content onto the handle or onto the social profiles of McDonald's. When they do that, it is automatically content, millions and bits and millions of pieces of content in record time. So capitalize on these strategies. Then you have gamification techniques. Induce small games into your daily activities or your daily marketing activities. It could be a small game, it could be a small questionnaire, it could be a very funny questionnaire, it could be a very interesting thought-provoking form. It could be an assessment, it could be a contest, it could be a quiz, it could be anything. Make sure you induce these gamification techniques in the communication that you have with your customers or with your potential customers. Assessments go a long way. Assess where your career will be by answering these few questions. Assess where could you end up financially if you follow these strategies. Assess your current financial situation. Assess your current language adaptability. Assess your fitness score. These are some of the ideas where you can weave into assessments and either post it in your communication with the customers or have it integrated onto your website and social handles for users to interact with it and to engage with it and to communicate with it, because you're providing them something even before you could ask them something. So assessments go a long way. Then we have recommendations. What you recommend to the users is what you recommend to your users or visitors is a clear indication as to how much you know them. If you offer me on the third time that I'm visiting your website a normal demo call, a basic level of recommendation that I have done in my first visit, I don't think you know me enough, and it shows. When I know that you don't know me enough, I will stop trusting your recommendations. So using all or some of the techniques or ideas that we had discussed in this session, if you employ a couple of techniques together, for example, you could employ progressive profiling, you could employ a questionnaire, and then if you start looking at recommending me things, you now have more information than just sending me blind recommendations. So basically, remember this again, what you recommend to your customer indicates how much you know about him or her. So that should be done with utmost caution. Don't rush through these things. Take them slow and have a couple of them in place, and then start working your way towards acquiring as many sources of first party data as possible. Then you have feedback is very, very, very important. Collect the feedback from the users, work on it, implement it, and tell them that you have worked on it and improved on that. So that builds the loyalty aspect with your customers. Then you have multi-step forms. We all know those boring forms where we ask them where we ask the visitors a couple of questions and nobody knows what to do with them after that. So instead of that, use multi-step forms. There are a lot of tools which will help you with multi-step forms. Get some data, start drilling down until you exactly arrive at what the customer wants and giving him just that through the other sources like a chatbot or an email or whatever it is. So multi-step forms can really help you if you really want to narrow down on what the user wants. Events and meetups, the grand old technique where you just organize an event and people come down, and this is where a lot of interaction happens. This gives a lot of content. This gives you a lot of footage. This gives you a lot of content to be posted on your social handles. A lot of discussions, interviews, video content. You knowing them personally. This is how you collect first party data. The bottom line of this session is we have seen all these things, we have read about all these things in the past, or we may have also done some of these things for our own businesses or for our clients. But if you work with these as a combination and not just as individual elements, if you weave a strategy around collecting first party data, I think you will have an edge over your competition. Thank you so much. My name is Casey.